Life often asks more of us than we feel capable of giving. The weight of responsibilities, expectations, and unspoken struggles can silently pile up until it becomes unbearable. For many, the battles inside are invisible, hidden behind smiles, polite words, and daily routines. But these battles are real, and ignoring them comes at a cost. Mental health is not a luxury. It is the foundation of every choice, every dream, and every relationship. A moment of pause, a breath of self-care, or the courage to ask for help can transform a life. Maria's journey is a mirror of what millions endure in silence, a story of quiet suffering that can turn into incredible resilience. This story is not about weakness. It is about courage, about facing the storms within and discovering the strength that was always there. It is a reminder that acknowledging pain is the first step toward freedom, and that every step toward healing matters. We all have invisible weights we carry, but what defines us is not the burden itself, it is the bravery to confront it, the determination to rise, and the hope that no darkness lasts forever. Maria's journey shows us that light can always be found. Even in the deepest shadows, the strongest battles are often the ones no one sees, but they can reveal the strongest you. Before we dive into Maria's journey, take a moment to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video. Every story of resilience deserves to reach someone who needs it. Let's walk this path together and discover the power within. The weight no one could see. Maria had always been seen as the pillar of her family, the one everyone leaned on when storms arrived. Her smile was her armor, and her silence was her shield. To the world, she looked unshakable, but inside, her thoughts were like waves crashing against the shore, restless and unrelenting. Each night, sleep slipped further away, and the heaviness in her chest grew stronger. It was a battle no one else could see. The responsibilities, stacked one after another, like bricks on her shoulders. What once brought her joy, a warm cup of coffee, laughter in the kitchen, the quiet of a sunset, now felt empty. The colors of life faded into gray, and even the smallest tasks seemed impossible. She carried the invisible weight everywhere she went, yet no one realized she was breaking. To survive, Maria perfected the art of wearing masks. At work, she was efficient and kind. At home, she pretended everything was fine, but the cracks were beginning to show. Her eyes told stories, her lips refused to speak. The quiet sighs, the moments of zoning out, the restless tapping of her fingers, these were her cries for help, even if no one noticed. Inside, she felt fragile and drained, a balloon slowly losing air. Still, people praised her strength, her resilience, her courage. Little did they know that every compliment felt like another layer of pressure. How could she admit that beneath the surface, she was drowning? How could the strong one confess she was falling apart? Every morning became a battlefield. Getting out of bed required energy she no longer had. Smiles became rehearsed performances, and conversations turned into exhausting marathons. The world saw only her victories, but never the invisible wounds that came with them. The more she tried to be everything for everyone, the more she lost herself. Her mind whispered constantly, "You can't let them down." But her soul begged for mercy. "You need to rest." This conflict tore her apart day after day. She wasn't weak, she was human. But society doesn't always allow humans to be vulnerable. And so, Maria carried her silent war, believing she had no right to put down the weight. The brightest smiles often hide the heaviest battles. The breaking point happened on an ordinary afternoon, during a simple coffee with an old friend. As they spoke, her friend paused and said softly, "Maria, you're not the same anymore." The words pierced deeper than any criticism, because they reflected a truth Maria had been trying to ignore. In that moment, the mask cracked, and she could no longer deny what was happening inside. That night, she replayed the conversation in her mind. Her heartbeat raced without reason, her breathing felt shallow, and tears came without warning. These were not random episodes, they were warnings. Her body had been shouting for months. She realized this wasn't just stress, it was something greater, something she could not fight alone. When Maria finally decided to seek professional help, fear nearly stopped her. Would she be judged? Would people think she was weak? For someone who had always carried everyone else, admitting she needed support felt like betraying her image. But sitting in that therapist's office, she discovered the opposite. She found compassion instead of judgment. The diagnosis came: generalized anxiety disorder. Strangely, it didn't feel like a prison sentence. It felt like relief. Finally, her suffering had a name, a face, a form. She wasn't crazy or broken. She was human, and her pain was valid. Knowing the truth gave her the first taste of freedom. That moment became a turning point. She realized healing was not about pretending everything was fine, but about facing reality with courage. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of light ahead. Naming her struggle was the first step toward reclaiming her life. And with that realization, Maria understood something powerful. Asking for help is not weakness, but strength. It is the act of standing up to the darkness and saying, "I refuse to fight this alone." Healing begins the moment courage speaks louder than fear. The path of accepting help was not easy for Maria. Her pride told her she could handle it alone, but her soul whispered otherwise. Slowly, she learned that caring for herself was not selfish, it was survival. Therapy became her sanctuary, the one place where she could remove her mask and finally breathe, without fear of being misunderstood. Each session was a release. Words she had buried for years began to surface, unraveling the knots inside her chest. The therapist's office became a mirror, showing her not just her pain, but her strength as well. With every conversation, the walls she had built around her heart started to crumble. She began to notice life's small miracles again. A genuine laugh, a morning without tears, the calm of a quiet evening, they all carried a new meaning. These moments, once invisible, became victories worth celebrating. Each one reminded her that healing is not instant, but it is possible. Maria realized that starting over did not make her weak. On the contrary, it proved her resilience. Perfection was no longer her goal. Authenticity was. She understood that embracing her flaws made her more human, and in that humanity, she found strength. There were setbacks, of course, days when the weight returned and she felt like she was back at the beginning. But now, instead of surrendering, she reminded herself, progress is not linear. Every stumble was still a step forward. Every scar proof of survival. For the first time, she gave herself permission to grow at her own pace. And that permission became the foundation of her healing journey. Accepting your wounds is the first step to turning them into marks of victory. Asterisk, the power of saying no. One of the hardest lessons Maria had to learn was the art of setting boundaries. For years, she believed her worth came from pleasing others, saying yes even when her heart screamed no. But the anxiety forced her to confront the truth. She could no longer carry the world if it meant losing herself in the process. At first, saying no felt selfish, but soon, she discovered it was liberating. Protecting her energy was not a betrayal, it was an act of love, not only for herself, but also for those who truly cared about her well-being. Boundaries became bridges to healthier connections, not walls of isolation. As she practiced, Maria noticed something extraordinary. The people who genuinely loved her respected her limits, while those who thrived on her exhaustion quietly faded away. For the first time, her relationships were built on honesty, not obligation. Every time she chose to rest instead of overextend, she felt stronger. Every time she declined something that drained her, she regained a piece of herself. Slowly, she realized that protecting her peace was her greatest strength. This new perspective transformed her life. No longer trapped by guilt, she understood that saying no was not about rejecting others, but about honoring herself. With each decision, she grew closer to the authentic life she had always deserved. Maria's reflection was clear. Strength is not about how much you endure for others, but how much you honor your own soul. Saying no to others can often mean saying yes to your own life. Asterisk. Turning pain into strength today. Maria no longer defines herself by her anxiety. She defines herself by the courage she discovered within it. The storm that once threatened to destroy her became the soil where her resilience grew. She is proof that even the darkest nights eventually give way to dawn. Instead of hiding her story, she shares it with others, not to expose her scars, but to light the path for those still walking in silence. She knows there are countless souls battling invisible wars, convinced they are alone. Her voice reminds them, you are not alone, and you are not broken. Maria now understands that happiness is not about a life without struggles, but about the strength to rise each time you fall. Her joy is no longer tied to perfection or appearances, but to authenticity and self-compassion. That freedom is her greatest victory. She celebrates the small wins, knowing they add up to transformation. Waking up without fear, breathing without heaviness, looking in the mirror, and liking who she sees. These are triumphs more valuable than any achievement the world once praised. Her journey taught her the most powerful truth of all. Pain does not define you. What defines you is the decision to fight, to rise, and to keep going when giving up feels easier. And so, Maria's story becomes more than her own. It becomes a call to everyone. Do not give up on yourself. You are worth the fight. You are not your anxiety. You are the strength that rises when you choose yourself. Asterisk. Maria's journey teaches us that healing is not a destination, but a path walked step by step, with patience, courage, and self-compassion. Mental health is not about perfection. It's about balance, awareness, and the bravery to prioritize oneself even when the world expects otherwise. The storms inside us may feel endless, but they can be the very soil where resilience grows. Every tear, every anxious night, every moment of doubt is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to reclaim your power. Overcoming is not forgetting the pain, but choosing to move forward despite it. Her story is proof that asking for help is strength, that setting boundaries is courage, and that embracing vulnerability is liberation. The greatest victories are not measured in accolades or approval, but in the ability to rise after falling, to care for oneself, and to rediscover hope. We are reminded that our minds deserve attention, our hearts deserve care, and our spirits deserve freedom. Taking charge of your mental health is the most radical and beautiful act of love you can give to yourself.